Good evening. It's been a tricky start to what's shaping up to be a tricky week for the Prime Minister. At lunchtime, right-wing Conservative backbenchers delivered a damning assessment of Rishi Sunak's plan to rescue his beleaguered Rwanda policy. It's now far from certain that the Prime Minister will have enough support to get his measures through in a Commons vote tomorrow. Earlier, Mr Sunak was strongly criticised after facing questions at the COVID inquiry about his actions as Chancellor during the pandemic. Mr Sunak apologised to the relatives of victims before revealing that he had been unable to provide the inquiry with any of his WhatsApp messages sent and received during COVID.
I have changed my phone multiple times in the years since then, and as I said previously, every time that's happened, the messages wouldn't have come across. But as I said, I'm not a prolific user of WhatsApp, and with the private office, again, that would have all been recorded formally on the record, or indeed where I've had exchanges with other individuals. Some of those have been part of the evidence that's formed the inquiry's deliberations.
Well, that admission prompted a furious response from the relatives of COVID victims listening to the Prime Minister's evidence.
The COVID bereaved find it inconceivable that any political leader, wherever they are, cannot produce their WhatsApps for the key periods of the pandemic. The bereaved do not accept today's excuses offered by the Prime Minister that his WhatsApps are entirely unavailable. Today, the COVID bereaved do not accept his empty words of sorrow, and it is of note that the Prime Minister has failed to utter one word of apology.
Rishi Sunak was then questioned at the inquiry about the controversial Eat Out to Help Out scheme he introduced during the pandemic to encourage people into pubs and restaurants. He was asked why he hadn't consulted scientific advisors about whether or not the plan was safe.
Why, in light of the obvious issue of risk of transmission inherent in any scheme that encouraged households to come together, did the Treasury not consult with SAGE, the CMO, the Secretary of State for Health, or anybody else outside number 10?
Because Eat Out to Help Out had been designed specifically in the context of the safe lifting of MPIs that had already been signed off, as we talked about before, as part of the May plan, which had reopened hospitality, indoor hospitality. That had already been part of the approved May plan. Eat Out to Help Out only operated within that context.
And Sky's Adele Robinson joins me now from the inquiry in central London. And Adele, not the ideal day from Rishi Sunak's point of view to be there, but very important in many ways, not least because of this controversy over the eating out policy.
Yeah, that's right. And what you didn't hear there is that the Prime Minister went one step further. He actually put the onus back on to the scientists who had criticised him in recent weeks for not consulting with them on his flagship scheme, the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. He actually said that they had ample opportunity to raise concerns, that it was nearly a month between the announcement of the scheme and its implementation, and in that time there had been 3